is February 17th, 2022. I'm just sitting here in my quiet between whatever craziness the humans could possibly come up with. And I'm reading, I don't know, is this one of the articles? Is this like an update? I mean, I said to the guy today that came up to me, I mean, he comes up in a Nets jacket, looks like all, I don't want to say decked out, because he's not decked out. He's not dressed to the nines. I really don't think he's even dressed to the hilt. Maybe he's dressed to the hilt. Maybe. Like hospitality guy. Because he talked about the Nets. But anyway. So he said to me, tell me about virtue. And I said, my virgin ears. I said, I am posh, you know. I said, port side out, starboard home. So he says, come on now. And he says, that's impossible where we are. And I said, well, New York being one of the most dirty cities, I said, I try to just, whatever. Then we talked about the size of the area itself, the Bayside. I said, wherever my feet can carry me is where I know Bayside exists. Although I did hear that it is extended. I heard somebody else grew up on a different side of Bayside, which I had never even heard of. And so he said he thought that it went down to 73rd. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, that would make sense, 43rd to 73rd. I mean, the numbers align for keeping me at bay in a fallout shelter and whatever design on Fish Island, but whatever. So here we are, and I'm reading this unrest in the colonies. It's almost like, I even said to him, I'm like, did you get this paper home with your kid? And he goes, yeah. I said, I don't know, it has an international license to it, so I mean, it's like the first update I've ever gotten on American history. So he was like, so I said, I haven't had any, he's like, I haven't had any references. So anyway, so now I'm reading silently by myself, conversation over with whatever. Oh, his kid said something to Nooch. Now I stand quietly and I just observe my son to make sure that he's not saying anything like a tuning fork that is not appropriate, because you never know what comes, like nothing's spoken of at home, very little, and I don't want anything coming out the wrong way, being that humanity's as volatile and unstable as it is at the moment. So, so I stand silently. I don't chastise him. I don't reprimand him unless he's about to get hurt and he's not paying attention. I said earlier, I said, yeah, regardez voi. But that's at whatever. And he just kept missing his peripheral with this one boy on a swing, and I didn't want him to get into a colliding whatever, and that would have been a big nightmare. I'm just cognizant of all these things. So hypervigilant, I suppose. Anyhow, so on this update, or whatever this is, I don't know who agreed. I mean, it's international, but it says Parliament found another way to make the colonists pay when the French and Indian War ended. There were thousands of British soldiers in the colonies. The British government wanted to keep them there. to help pay for this, Parliament passed the Quatering Act. The act required colonial governments to supply quarters for the British soldiers. Quarters are places to live. Now, I'm just curious, for people like myself, why are the people not like me getting free housing and free accommodations? That sounds like this was set up like to fail, especially considering the rock and the paper. Very confusing. Then the last thing I've ever heard of with quarters is foredrawn and quartered, where they take like 4 American horses and they put 1 rope on either arm, 1 rope on either leg, and then they gallop off and they just leave your torso. It is the most disgusting, like, display of non-sportsmanship or sportsman or sending a message. It is barbaric. What I don't understand is what this Quatering Act is on these papers, and how they actually were able, if you, in one of the other articles, are raising money by taxing paper products and all this other stuff, and they go electronic, you lose your funds. Ruh-oh. How are you making good on this Quatering Act, taking care of everybody else's kids? I'm just curious. Some of these things just don't make sense, and I don't have anybody to speak to. And I know that I'm just in a really bad way. The colonists did not like the Quatering Act. It says, why did the British government want to keep soldiers in the colonies? If it was for the colonists' protection, whom were they being protected from? And were the soldiers staying in the colonies to make sure that colonists obeyed British laws, even the unfair ones? Well, it would be really swell if this was true, to be taught these British laws, but that doesn't happen in elementary school. My entire life, my mom's life, and now into my children's life. So I'm like, these are wonderful, whatever, but in action and motion, they don't exactly make 100% of sense. Like, are these Band-Aids? Because how do you put Band-Aids like this where you're disseminating information and propaganda, trying to tell a story in one way, but the children have knocked out the only source of income for everybody, and they've doubled in their numbers because everything was free? Just curious where that formula for success and keeping civil whatever, how that's going to actually work out in reality. Because it sounds like setting everybody up for disaster and the greatest war that's yet to come. Besides the fact that with all this advancements away from being able to raise money to pay for quarters and to pay for livelihoods and to sustain, they've enhanced alternate sources of energy, which means that now they've tapped into a system that they're not allowed to. It's uncontrolled and it's at an unconditioned way. I mean, tonight I walked up to go get a gallon of milk for my parents, and a couple of other items that they needed. I was so out of breath. Like, I can't get enough oxygen into my lungs and breathe safely. And as I'm walking, I'm limping because by limping, because there's so much electricity or electrolyte arcing between whatever is causing my shortness of breath in my joints, where it actually is cracking like a static electric discharge as I'm walking. My shoulders pop out. Like, it is really disgusting at biopharmaceutical level what is allowed in my daily segue of trying to negotiate my way through this environment and read between the lines in I'm an important figure either way. What I don't understand is why I've been left out of the real conversations and now I'm being punished in some way as if I did something wrong. It gets really confusing when the people in charge of this level information get the storylines, the descriptions, the people, the cultures, the genealogy, the heraldry, the kingdom involvement, Zybin, and then it's c'est bon, c'est bon, c'est bon, and Zybin. It is just like there is only one way that my two immaculates came out, being exact carbon copies of genetics that I enjoy looking at and that are sculpted in historical memory, like in physicality. But the cyber attacks and the cyber knives that are being thrown through physique and physics is really painful at atom or atom or diatomic level. It is so painful to even try to hold one's structure back. I heard on Drew Barrymore today, they were talking about with some man called a Chris Appleton. Maybe that was yesterday. I don't remember. Either way. And she said she had seen, like, if they do their hair and stuff, they just hold their posture different. That is wonderful, and that's one visual thing that does happen. But when you don't have access to that kind of stuff, and you are bombarded at every opportunist's whatever to take everything that didn't work out in the formula and just bombard your biology with it into this like origamic crushing fashion, that's where I am at this point. It hurts so badly. It's interstitial within the fluid of the joints that you don't even have to move your bones. The fluid just hurts, and HERTZ, because there's some kind of electronic vibration and signal that, like, there's the type of vibration which was seismic, that the alarm outside yesterday went off after the fact to signal that something happened, and it kept going on and off yesterday. That was physical vibration that I can pick up with my, like a tuning fork with my body. But then there's like, I don't know if you call it like sonar or sonic, SONIC or SONAR. I'm not sure which one, you don't necessarily feel at your autonomic nervous system or central nervous system doesn't pick up on it, but it still is going on sensationally around, almost like a solar flare. It's like it's there, it's a frequency, it's a vibration that's dangerous, but your body doesn't necessarily is not always awoke or awake enough to cognitively say, oh, that's not good. And that's what it feels like at this point. It's like in some of the joints, being like the elbows and the knees and sometimes the feet. I mean, I'm only 43. This should not be happening. And when I was 27 and actively in the gym, like, same woman, but now a decade and 3 years later, is feeling like she's crippled. And put on electronic weight. There is something extremely wrong with the way biopharmaceuticals have been funded, developed, or created, who they hired, and what they're allowing as punishment of some sort for those walking out and about doing whatever it is that they do. It is so cripplingly painful and obvious that it's something advanced technology integrated into the daily whereabouts of, I can't escape it. I don't know how to escape this. I'm like trapped here and being tortured by uncontrolled electric that's been enhanced through all of these products that they've sold that I was against in the beginning, and still not a big proponent of, but I don't know how to save myself or protect myself. I don't know where to get money from because I've been kind of blocked out of whatever. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. But this abusive biological attack, it's not the sort of thing like I tell one doctor, so what? I've been telling doctors for years. My voice disappeared out of nowhere. I don't know why I sound froggy now. Something's wrong. I keep reporting it. They keep sending me for diagnostic tests to no avail. There's been no solution. Just, we don't know. I mean, they give me the readings of the test, but nothing ever gets better. I still can't find work and jobs.